He was the most powerful leader of the 20th century. He swept across the European continent. Thousands of years of European civilization were crushed under the iron hooves. He defined the Jewish people as the most despicable race. Even now, Israelis consider him the enemy of the nation. He originally wanted to be a successful painter, but he never imagined wearing a military uniform, with golden armor shining throughout the city. He once peacefully rested at Berchtesgaden, and in the end, he and his mistress committed suicide in the garden of the Imperial Chancellery. In this episode, follow me as I delve into the Nazi Party leader, Adolf Hitler. First, I want to share an interesting fact about Hitler. He was not German. On April 20, 1889, a little boy was born in the town of Braunau, Austria. He would later become the Nazi leader who swept across Europe, Adolf Hitler. He was the third child born to his father from his third marriage. When Hitler was born, his father Alois was already 52 years old. After Alois retired from a minor position at the local customs office, Hitler spent his days quarreling with his father. Adolf Hitler spent most of his childhood in Linz, the capital of Austria. After his mother Clara passed away in 1908, Hitler moved to Vienna. His father wanted him to follow in his footsteps and become a civil servant, living a stable life. However, influenced by his father's struggles, Adolf Hitler had never included a position as a civil servant in his plans. He aspired to be a painter and applied to the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts. Fate had other plans, and Hitler was rejected twice by the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts. He found it difficult to fit in with the nobility and the hustle and bustle of the big city. Despite economic hardships, Hitler tried to showcase his talent in art. However, painting landscapes alone was not enough in Europe at that time. European art was renowned for its portrayal of figures and events, such as Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa and the Last Supper, Rembrandt's The Return of the Prodigal Son, and Picasso's famous work Les Demoiselles d'Avignon. Pure landscape paintings were rare because Europeans used art to preserve culture, record stories, and express emotions. Unfortunately, Hitler lacked skills in depicting figures and dynamic scenes. Thus, poverty and destitution became constant companions throughout his life. Hitler led a lonely life in Vienna, and his loneliness sparked a strong interest in politics. He would stand in the cold wind, selling his unremarkable paintings, observing the passing crowds, experiencing the harsh realities of life. He would gaze up at the Habsburg Emperor sitting proudly in a carriage, while he stood on the streets of prosperity. In that year, there was another young man who got lost in the crowd, sharing the same destiny and political strategies. Hitler and this young man would become archenemies in the future. His name was Joseph Stalin. On July 28, 1914, World War I broke out, and the young Hitler rejoiced. It was the time for him to unleash his energy. Out of fear for the brutalities of the Russian soldiers, Hitler volunteered to join the Bavarian army. He fought bravely on the Western Front. As the war dragged on and entered a stalemate, many soldiers became weary and disillusioned with the war. However, Hitler still hoped for the war to continue until victory. Despite being only a communication soldier, whenever his comrades complained about the harsh conditions and lack of food, he would passionately scold them. The winter in Moscow could not cool Hitler's fervor. When news of the war's end arrived, 29-year-old Hitler, who was then a corporal in the German army, angrily pounded on the hospital bed. By that time, he had been blinded by gas on the battlefield and had been relegated to the rear. He had hoped to recover and return to battle, but it turned out to be a futile hope. It should be noted that Germany had been at war for 4.5 years. The people believed victory was within reach, even as the war neared its end and Germany still controlled most of Western Europe and parts of Russia. However, everything collapsed overnight in November 1918. The German army disbanded, and soldiers joined the ranks of strikers and demonstrators. They felt abandoned by the German emperor, who had fled abroad. After the war, despite receiving the Iron Cross first and second class, Hitler's life spiraled into unemployment. He became a bohemian-style painter. In 1919, he joined a far-right party in Germany, marking the beginning of his political career. Many years later, a photograph of a march brought Hitler back into the wave of World War I. However, he was no longer an unknown communicator. This photograph was taken by Munich photographer Heinrich Hoffmann on August 2, 1914, during a rally in Munich. The rally aimed to support the war against Russia and took place the day before the German presidential election. We cannot judge the authenticity of this photograph, but it gained significant exposure from the authorities and government, as it served as a publicity boost for Hitler, who would become the leader of Germany. How did Hitler, a wandering painter in Vienna, embark on the path to power after World War I? Germany became a defeated nation. The Treaty of Versailles imposed enormous reparations on Germany to be paid to the victorious countries. To prevent Germany, a Sparta-like nation, from reigniting the flames of war, the victorious countries imposed economic sanctions on Germany. The Ruhr industrial region was occupied by France, and the losses incurred during the war pushed the German economy to the brink of collapse. By the end of 1922, German currency had depreciated to 42 trillion marks, equivalent to just $1. The mark became worthless paper, and the German people felt lost about the future of their country. During that time, the German population deeply resented the government and hoped for a new political force to emerge. The Nazi Party movement arose in response to this demand. The people strongly desired a strong-handed leader who could turn the tide and offer a glimmer of hope. Hitler believed the time was ripe for seizing power. On the evening of November 8, 1923, at the Burgerbräukeller beer hall in Munich, Germany, an event unfolded that would go down in history. The Bavarian State Commissioner, Karl, was delivering a political speech to over 3,000 citizens gathered there. Among the audience were various grassroots individuals, ranging from petty thieves to national leaders, reflecting the social unrest and the plight of the unemployed in post-war Germany. Some homeless individuals took the opportunity to enjoy free beer, hoping to hear policy measures from the commissioner's speech that could benefit them. However, the high-ranking official seemed disconnected from the concerns of the people and indulged in lofty rhetoric, causing the audience to grow impatient. At 9 p.m., Hitler, accompanied by members of the paramilitary stormtroopers in their distinctive brown uniforms, surrounded the beer hall. Before the people could understand what was happening, machine guns were aimed at them. A gunshot rang out, and a new person appeared on the podium as the pale-faced Commissioner Karl stepped down. Hitler triumphantly took the microphone and shouted, "The national revolution has begun. The new interim national government has been established. As the leader of the new government, I have ordered my troops to march into the city with the red flag." Thus, the infamous beer hall putsch, a failed coup d'état, was launched. Hitler was subsequently arrested and imprisoned. While in prison, Hitler did not remain idle. He began writing his first book, originally titled 4.5 Years of Struggle Against Lies, Stupidity, and Cowardice, which was later published as Mein Kampf, My Struggle. The book created a frenzy upon its release, with sales second only to the Bible that year. Germans who acquired the book saw it as a glimpse into their future, envisioning the rise of their nation and empire. The book emphasized the people and their interests, highlighting the weakness of the ruling elites at the time. Hitler's image appeared towering and majestic, resonating with any oppressed nation in similar circumstances. If there were someone who could help them escape their current situation, from having nothing to eat to having something, wouldn't they wholeheartedly support him? The sentiment represented both national resentment and class enmity, and Hitler masterfully exploited the psychology of the masses. In 1931, Hitler had an exceptionally busy year. Traveling throughout Germany in his car, holding private meetings with prominent figures from the industrial sector. In January 1932, more than 300 monopolistic capitalists and their representatives gathered at the Dusseldorf Industrialists Club to hear Hitler's speech on Nazi Party policies. Hitler assured the capitalists that he would not infringe upon private property or the sovereignty of entrepreneurs. He vehemently attacked the democratic system and advocated for seizing living space through force. His speech earned enthusiastic applause from the capitalists, with Thiessen leading the chant, "Heil Hitler." Money flowed continuously into Hitler's pockets, estimated at 90 million marks in support from German monopolistic capitalists between 1930 and 1932. The financial backing from the monopolistic bourgeoisie expanded the Nazi Party's capacity and scope of activities, further enhancing Hitler's position. In October 1929, the economic crisis that first erupted in the United States quickly spread throughout the capitalist world. Nearly half of the national workforce became unemployed, and the living conditions of workers, peasants, and the petite bourgeoisie deteriorated significantly. The rising resistance movements led to a severe political crisis. The German monopolistic bourgeoisie could no longer maintain their rule through normal means. In this situation, the representatives of another faction of the bourgeoisie, led by Thiessen and Hugenberg, further strengthened their support for Hitler. The Nazi Party's astonishing success in the September 14, 1930 parliamentary elections became a new starting point for their collaboration. Hitler and his party's status soared, and in 1933, the Nazi Party became the largest party in Germany. On June 22 of the same year, Hitler's government ousted the last remaining party from the political center, making the Nazi Party the ruling party. Thus, the German social system was established with the party at the helm, and Hitler became the leader in practice. Once in power, Hitler eloquently delivered numerous public speeches, further fueling the revengeful mentality of the German people. He proclaimed that Germany would tear up the Treaty of Versailles, which had pushed them into hell, and regain its place on the world stage. He vowed to make those who had oppressed and divided their nation regret their actions. Hitler rallied the people, emphasizing that the German people were the most outstanding. The Spartan spirit of the nation was once again inflamed, and a world-engulfing war began. As the wheels of history rolled forward, it is well known that 1945 marked Hitler's downfall. Facing betrayal and abandonment, Hitler refused to accept trial and committed suicide with his companion Eva in the garden of the Reich Chancellery. The devil finally tasted his bitter fate, leaving an indelible mark on human history. If history could be changed. And if you happen to be walking on the streets of Vienna in 1913, and if you happen to see a thin, mustachioed painter selling his art, you might stop and say, "Good, you are a great painter."